Hello and good evening. Welcome to the third session of the Outdoor Tourism Content Creator Training. This is basically half time. We have 6 sessions in total, and tonight is the third of these 6 sessions. I'm happy to see so many of you again here. It's great to see you again, and I'm really happy that we can go through this third session together. I hope there weren't any too big questions left after last week's session. We received a few emails from some of you, which are always very appreciated. Thank you for all the positive feedback, for your questions, but also for your criticism. We're reading every single email. I'm trying to respond to all of them. This is also an invitation to everyone here on the call right now. If there is anything you want to share with us, feedback, questions, criticism, just answer to one of the emails that you receive prior to these sessions. And after these sessions, they always end up directly in my inbox, and then I can take care of them. So thank you to everyone who's already been writing in. And I'd say without further ado, let's take a look at this course and today's session. Brilliant. So today is the third of 6 sessions. It's called Inspiring Stories and Informative Texts. And just to quickly remind you of this course as a whole, we started 2 weeks ago with the basics of content-based outdoor tourism promotion. We continued with a session on how we can get information and data from the destination and digitize it and make sure that it is available on the platforms. And then today we're going to look at how we write text for route descriptions, text for POIs, but also just in general, texts that are captivating, that are inspiring, that are informative for visitors. Next, we're going to look at high-ranking content, so how you can improve the visibility of your content and make sure that it reaches more travelers and more users online. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to look at the basics of photography, and we're going to learn how to create convincing offers online. And then in the last session on April 10, we're going to learn how to use different platforms and social media to distribute our content effectively across the internet so that it reaches a lot of different people. But right now we're here, session number 3, inspiring stories and informative text. So today, this is what it's all about. You will probably notice from one of the last sessions, but if you're joining for the first time, just so you know what's happening here, each of the sessions, like this one tonight, consists of an introduction and then 2 pre-recorded training modules that I'm going to guide you through, always followed by a question and answer session. So whenever during this webinar you have any questions, you can just put them in the chat and we will be able to answer them together with you. In this course, we're using the Outdoor Active platform as an example, but everything that you learn here can always be applied to any other online platform, be it an outdoor tourism platform or other online services. So this is really about content creation, and we're just using Outdoor Active as an example for that. If you participate actively in this course, you receive free access to Outdoor Active Business, and this includes an Outdoor Active Pro subscription worth 30 euros that allows you to use everything offline on your smartphone as well. So you can use offline maps, offline navigation, and so on. The requirement for this is that you attend one of the live sessions. We always keep a participant list, and those of you who have attended one of the previous sessions should have already received instructions and their code for this. At the end of each session, we're suggesting some homework that you can do so that you can try out what you learned in this course in practice yourself. This homework is, of course, voluntary, but we do recommend it. A few words regarding how we do these calls. Please, whenever you log onto these calls, whenever you sign up for these calls, use your full name when logging into the Teams call. So this helps us to keep a participant list and know who's attending which sessions and who should receive access to the Outdoor Active tools. If you have already logged onto this call and you didn't use your full name and you can't change it right now, kindly use this opportunity right now to just put your full name into the chat in MS Teams right now so that we also know that you are here, and then we can keep these participant lists up to date. Your microphone, as you might have already noticed, as well as your camera, are muted during the call. You cannot turn them on. What we do instead is, if you have questions, kindly put them into the chat Or during the Q&A session, during the discussion part, you can raise your hand. There is a little symbol at the top or at the bottom of your Microsoft Teams app or in the browser that you're using that says raise hand. And if you click on that, then I get a notification that you have a question that you want to ask, and then I can allow you to unmute and ask your question. After each session, we do send around a recording. You might have seen this for the previous calls. So if there's something that you missed or you want to re-watch, you can do that afterwards. Even if you do miss one of the sessions, it doesn't mean that you have to drop out of the course, because you can still catch up on what you missed using the recording afterwards. But of course, we always recommend that you attend the sessions live, because then you can ask your questions, you can join the conversation, you can join the discussion, and you don't have to basically wait until the next week so you can ask your question. At the end of this course, if you have attended all of the live sessions or watched the recordings, you can apply for an official certificate as a trained outdoor tourism content creator. This will be a personalized certificate with your name on it. If you want to have that certificate, it's completely voluntary and optional, of course. You will have to complete a self-paced online exam. This is basically a quiz that takes about 30 minutes to complete. And if you score enough points, then we know that you have attended these sessions and that you did pay attention, that you did learn what needed to be learned, and then you can call yourself a certified outdoor tourism content creator from this course, basically. If you want, we are offering the option of including your name. This is only, of course, if you receive the certificate. We can include your name in a public list of certified content creators. This will be a publicly available list that contains your name and a contact email address, so that whoever needs support in content creation in your region, in your destination, in your country, can reach out to you and ask you for your support and hire you for these services. Okay. Are there any questions regarding design of the course, or are there any questions from last week? If you want, you can put them in a chat right now, or you can raise your hand and I can allow you to unmute yourself so that you can ask a question live. Vyosa has a question. So Vyosa, I'm going to allow you to activate your camera and your microphone.
Yes, thank you very much, Simon. My question has to do with how to use the outdoor active. I mean, I tried to use the map and I created the routing, but the flags that I put, like viewpoints that people have to stop, I could not upload the pictures. Or if I upload the picture, it doesn't link with the actual point that they will see, for example. How it's called? Yeah, waypoints.
Yeah. Did you take the pictures while you were on the trail with the smartphone in the application, or did you want to upload and add them afterwards?
Yes, I wanted to upload because I had pictures. Last session, I told you that I did this, the city walk in Google Map.
Yeah.
And when I converted it, it was completely mixed. So I had to redo it. And I have already pictures, and I wanted to just link pictures with the point, but if a person goes in order to see the picture, but this I could not do. It was very interesting. I tried everything, but I mean, maybe I don't know how to do it, or
So I think the best option, especially for a city walk, is if you create these waypoints as so-called points of interest. This is something that we're going to look at in detail in session number 5 in 2 weeks, how we can create these points of interest, and then you can upload these pictures to the point of interest, but you can also include a description and some information. You can even, if you want to, you could create like an audio guide for this and upload like a voice recording where you tell someone. So you could even make this like a full-on city tour, a guided tour through the city. If it's okay with you, I would therefore postpone this question until session number 5, because then we're going to look at how you can create these point of interest and link them with your route, with your trail in detail. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, of course. I'm too early for my question then.
No, this is very good. You're already thinking ahead, and you want to explore all the opportunities of the platform.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will be waiting. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for your question. Okay. We have a question in the chat from Ilir Zhegrova. Very sorry for my pronunciation. who asks, if I create a trail and export it in a GPX file, can I put it in a Suunto watch? Is it compatible? The answer is yes. You can do that manually by downloading the track as a GPX and then uploading it to your Suunto watch through the either you're using the online platform of Suunto, or you can even connect your Suunto with a cable to the computer. But it's probably easier to just do it through the phone and the application of Suunto. So that is a way to do it. You can even synchronize your Suunto account and your Outeractive account automatically. What I'm going to do in the follow-up email that I'm sending to this course, where you also get the recording link, I'm going to include a link to a knowledge page, to an information page, where it is explained how you can connect your Outeractive account with your Suunto account, and then everything that you plan in your Outeractive account will be available in your Suunto app or in your Suunto watch, and everything that you record with your Suunto app will automatically also be available in your Outeractive account. I'm not going to explain it in detail now because it's a bit technical, but I'm just going to send you the link to that explanation page in the follow-up email. And then we have a question from Dritan Shalla. Dritan is asking, can I delete an individual account and keep only the recently created business account? You can. So in your normal Outeractive community account, the one that you had previously, you can go to your account and the account settings, and there's an option to delete your account. If you already have some content in that account, some tracks that you want to keep, or some your challenges, or anything that you created, then you want to keep that and move it to the new account, that I'm kindly asking you to send me an email that contains your email address that you used for the old account and the email address that you used for the new account, and to clearly let me know which one is the new and which one is the old one. So which one do you want to keep, and whether I should transfer all of the content from the old account to the new account. This is something that you cannot do yourself because it is a bit technical and difficult, but I can help you with that in the backend. So if that is the case, if you have content in your old account that you want to move to your new account, you can just email me and I'll help you with that. If you just want to delete it and there is nothing in it anyway, you can do so by going to your account settings, not on My Business, but on the normal Outeractive platform or in your application. You can delete the account there. Okay, I think that's it for questions here at the start of the session. So of course, you're going to have plenty of opportunity to ask more questions after each of the modules. So we're going to start with the first module now. Just real quick, a look at what you can expect in today's session. So today it's going to be all about text production, text creation. How do we write well? How do we create text-based content? And this includes things like taking the reader's perspective, which we're going to explain in detail, the basics of storytelling and why it matters, why technically a lot of your content will actually end up being a little bit like a story, and how you can balance inspiration and information in your writing. Now, I know that not everyone here is a naturally born talented novel author. Yeah, not everyone is a great writer per se. And then maybe also language can be an issue if you want to create content in English, but it's not your first language. This can make things a bit more difficult. This is why we're also introducing you today to a number of free online tools that you can use that help you with text creation, that help you with writing better texts. So I'd say without further ado, if there are no super urgent questions, I will start the first module. And as usual, it is possible that I'm going to have some troubles with sharing the audio. So if that is the case and you see the video, but you do not hear any sound, please give me a quick shout out in the chat so that I know that I have to change the settings. If the video is a bit slow for you sometimes, this is possibly because of your internet connection. Sometimes the video does not get transported as smoothly. Usually the sound travels through all right. So this is, of course, the most important part, is that you hear what's being said and that you at least get some impression of what's going on the screen. If you absolutely cannot follow because your internet connection is too bad, I'm really sorry. There's nothing we can do from our side, but you can, of course, always then watch the recording afterwards. But for now, let's try it out and have fun with the first module. I'm going to see you for the discussion part afterwards.
Welcome back to the Outdoor Tourism Content Creator Training. This chapter is all about creating good text-based content. In other words, you will learn how you can write targeted texts that are informative and inspiring at the same time. With some easy to follow rules, we will look at the basics of text production and storytelling, as well as some techniques that can help you get your message out in such a way that users will want to interact with your content and become future travelers to your destination. What is important to remember here, you do not need to be a naturally talented writer in order to create texts that grab people's attention. Deliver the information needed and to use words to promote and sell a product or service to your target group. Sure, some people seem to be just magically able to put their words on paper that actually speak to an audience. But your writing does not need to be up there with the best writers of your generation. All you need to be able to do is get your message and stories across so that travelers from all around the world are motivated to plan a trip to your destination. And with a number of practical tips, you too will be able to do so. So right now we are going to look at why it matters to take the reader's perspective, what the importance of storytelling is, even if telling a story is not what you're after, why outdoor tourism content should speak both to the heart and the brain, how you can make your own writing better with just a few practical steps. Let's get started, shall we? According to different studies, we are exposed to around 4,000 to 10,000 promotional messages a day. That is, on average, double as many back in 2007 and approximately 5 times as many as 50 years ago. Our brains are not designed to properly process and remember that many messages. So naturally, we are subconsciously filtering all of the ads, social media posts, and other types of content we see on a daily basis. And the way we do this, by filtering for what is relevant to us. The implications are a little more difficult than you might think. What our brains deem relevant for us is not only based on what kind of information we currently need, rather than that, we usually scan for what we build an emotional connection with. Humans are social animals. We are beings who feel. So most often, the messages that stay with us, the ones that make an impression on us, are those that speak to us emotionally. What does this mean in practice? Let's look at the example of Ari once again. If Ari wants to grab people's attention, inspire their curiosity, and make them want to travel to her destination, she must build 2 connections with them. An emotional one that speaks to the heart, and an information-based one that speaks to the brain. If we stick with the example of Alex, the globetrotter whose range of interests make him the perfect target group for Ari's destination, guest house, and guiding services, Ari must ask herself 3 questions. Why does Alex travel? How can my destination be a fit for Alex's motivations? And what does he need to know if he wants to plan a trip and activities in the destination? What Ari does here is basically to put herself into Alex's shoes. She tries to see the world and, most importantly, her destination from his perspective. This is an absolutely crucial step, as it allows her to design her offers and the content she creates in a way that is appealing to Alex. And in the end, this is what matters the most, that Ari's customers, the tourists, and in this case Alex, are inspired. So let's stick with the example of Alex. Why does Alex travel? Of course, Ari doesn't have the resources to conduct a whole market research study on the motivations of her target group. But having met and spoken to other travelers in the past, Ari can make more or less well-informed assumptions. Here's what Ari knows about travelers like Alex who might have traveled to her and similar destinations in the past. They apparently like to travel off the beaten track, as they seem to enjoy traveling to destinations that are not yet very popular with or known by mainstream travelers. They like to be active in nature, as they are into hiking and other outdoor sports. They want authentic, unique experiences, as they prefer to travel individually rather than with a big group or a prefabricated itinerary. They do not need a pool, fancy restaurants, 5-star hotels, or other luxuries, as they prefer to travel with a more basic level of comfort. So apparently travelers like Alex seem to travel because they want to be active in the nature, to have authentic, unique experiences rather than luxury, to travel alone or in small groups rather than in big crowds of people, to experience untouched nature. Naturally, this is already helpful for Ari when she is designing her guest house and she is putting together her guided tours. But it also helps her promote her services and products because it makes it easier for her to understand what Alex and the other travelers want to hear. Let's look at an example. Here are two short texts describing the same fictional hike. Which version do you think Alex will find more appealing? Popular hike to the famous waterfall. This easy hike on a broad path leads to the famous waterfall in the forest. It is a popular trail enjoyed by tourists and locals. Insider's tip: the hidden waterfall in the woods. This adventurous yet not difficult trail lets you follow some old footpaths to a magnificent waterfall deep in the forests. Only recently the locals have started sharing this place with adventurers ready to explore the secrets of the region. So, version 1 or version 2? The first text uses keywords like easy, famous, popular, and tourists. The second text uses phrases like hidden, adventurous, deep in the forest, locals, and exploring the secrets. Both texts could easily describe the same trail, yet the second one will be a lot more appealing to a traveler like Alex, who is seeking an authentic, unique experience off the beaten track. Why is that? Well, much more than what we do and how we do it, it matters why we do or want to do something. In the end, visitors to your destination, your customers, are looking for a very specific set of experiences. There is something they want to feel, to experience firsthand. And if you have an understanding of what that is, and you manage to put yourself into their shoes and see the world or your destination through their eyes, then it will be much easier to find the right words for your content. However, just because Alex, the way we described him, represents the right target group for Ari's business and destination, this does not mean that travelers like Alex will also be the right target group for your business and services. You have to do your own research and thinking to try and understand the kind of people who travel to your destination and that might book your services or buy your products. Are they individualists, families, old or young, active or seeking relaxation? You'll have to try and take their perspective, understand why they might want to travel to your destination. What is it that they hope to find there? So you can deliver and promote exactly that to them. This requires a lot of honest thinking. You might have a certain vision for what you think would make your destination or business great. And of course, your perspective matters just as much as anyone's. But in the end, if you want to attract more visitors and make sure they have a great time visiting your destination and business, you will have to focus on their expectations, their needs, and their motivations. The best way to learn more about your target group is by simply asking them, or at least by observing them. Now, if your destination does not yet see many visitors, you might want to find businesses and destinations similar to yours and to try to find and learn from them. What kind of visitors do they see? What are these travelers looking for? Ask, observe, and learn so that you will be able to paint a mental image of your target group. Take their perspective and better understand what kind of messages, content, details about your destination are of interest to them. To summarize, if we want to promote a destination or business to the target group, it is absolutely crucial to get a better understanding of who your current and future visitors are, to try and understand why they travel, what their motivation is, and what they are looking for, and to take their perspective and craft your messages and content from the perspective of what they want to read and what will inspire them rather than what you think is important. And in the next step, we will take a look at how you can craft these messages. Stories are at the absolute core of the human experience. Long before any of the media we use nowadays, before humans learned how to write and read, before cave paintings, even humans who have told each other stories. And even though our world looks very different than at the times when cave people were sitting around in a campfire, the art of telling stories and how we react to them is still embedded in our DNA. Research has shown that when we hear a compelling story, multiple crucial areas of our brain are activated. Stories have the ability to evoke emotions, and they foster a stronger connection between the storyteller, in your case, the content creator, and the target group. Studies also suggest that people are more likely to remember information presented as part of a captivating narrative rather than purely as facts. And they can be convinced and influenced in their behavior a lot more easily through storytelling. And after all, this is exactly what you want to do when you promote an emerging outdoor tourism destination or your business through digital content. You want to build a connection to your target group. Make sure they remember you among the myriads of information they see every day. And you want to influence them in such a way that they plan their next trip to your destination. Does that mean that you should craft elaborate fairy tales or write a 1,000-page novel about your destination? Of course not. But storytelling is not only found in tales and narratives, it can be incorporated into almost any kind of text, even a trail description or an offer for a guided tour. Let's take a look at the fictional trail from previously. The first version read, "This easy hike on a broad path leads to the famous waterfall in the forest. It is a popular trail enjoyed by tourists and locals." This text is very descriptive. It mentions the difficulty, the terrain, the destination, and the popularity of the hike. It contains all the necessary information, but it's not very captivating. Let's look at the second version again. This adventurous yet not difficult trail lets you follow some old footpaths to a magnificent waterfall deep in the forests. Only recently the locals have started sharing this place with adventurers ready to explore the secrets of the region. This text contains the same pieces of information, but the focus appears to be on something else. By saying the trail lets you follow some old footpaths, suddenly the text is no longer about the physical trail, but about the experience that awaits the traveler. And this is the golden rule when creating digital content in outdoor tourism. Always make it about the experience. Why is that? As readers or users, we have the ability to identify with what is presented to us. We cannot really identify with a trail, a waterfall, or a forest. We can, however, picture ourselves hiking the trail. And we like to think that we could be the adventurers ready to explore the secrets of the region. There is a somewhat untranslatable word in German, Vorfreude. Vorfreude describes a feeling of joyful anticipation. It describes the state when you look forward to something that will happen in the future and it already makes you happy right now. And a German proverb says, Vorfreude is the greatest joy there is. If your content manages to trigger Vorfreude in a user, you can be certain that they will strongly consider traveling to your destination, because they have already pictured themselves in your destination, having the experiences that they can have there. So now they most certainly want to have them in real life. Let's return to the example of Ari, our guest house owner and tour guide in a rural mountain village, and Alex, the adventurous backpacker looking for unique experiences. Ari can, of course, describe the features of her destination in all detail. Are there mountains, trails, forests, rivers, etc.? But these are all things that can be found all over the world. Alex will most likely read this and forget it the next moment. But what if Ari identifies and tells about the unique experiences Alex could have when visiting her destination? What if she writes about the moment that you step onto a summit and you see the valleys and rivers below? The reward of making it to a mountain village where a small shop offers tea and snacks. Ari can write about the shepherds a hiker might meet in the mountains and how they are always open for a chat and maybe sharing a cigarette or a chocolate bar. She can sneak in a local anecdote about why a mountain is called a certain way or how foxes keep stealing the farmer's chickens there. Ari must think of herself not primarily as someone who gives information to Alex, but rather a friend who talks about a beautiful place that Alex should visit and the things he can experience there. Let us look at some good examples of storytelling in route descriptions. From the mountain village of Dragostunje, this hike leads up to the high valley of the Šebenik Massif on the gravel paths and little used trails. With ice-cold glacial lakes and a summit ridge that offers almost unbelievable views in all directions, lynx and brown bears can only be seen with extreme luck. But proud eagles often soar through the skies here. The trail is only marked in the upper part, but finding your way is no problem, at least in good weather. Apart from a few shepherds, there are usually no other hikers, even in high season. A secret that is well worth discovering, and panoramic views that compensate for the tough climb. Notice how the author uses adjectives to describe little used trails, ice-cold glacial lakes, and almost unbelievable views to paint the picture of a lonely mountain landscape. Other characters are introduced like lynx, brown bears, proud eagles, and shepherds, putting some life into the description. And by pointing out that this is a secret that is well worth discovering, and that a hiker will be compensated for the tough climb, the reader can already get a sense of the emotions that await them when attempting this route. Another example highlights how special recommendations can make content a lot more relatable and give a personal feeling. If you still feel like some more winter fun after the descent, you can rent a sledge at the small ski lift next to the main road and race down the slope together with the kids from the village. In this example, a recommendation is given that has little to do with the described route itself. In this case, a snowshoeing hike up a mountain peak. But a personal note like this shows the reader that there is a lot more to experience than just a hike. Plus, it adds a little bit of the local atmosphere, something that is special about this very place in specific. In a similar way, one could give recommendations about local restaurants and certain specialities that a hiker should try there. About a lake, river, or beach where a hiker could take a swim during the route. A historic monument or haunted forest. Certain wild berries that can be picked at certain times of the year, and so on. You see, there are endless possibilities of how you can include storytelling in something as simple as a route description. To summarize, here are some easy to follow rules for enriching your text-based outdoor tourism content. Make it about the experience, not the trail. Your focus should always be on the adventure that a hiker, cyclist, or other type of traveler will find here rather than the physical route. Point out the uniqueness of this route. Always try to think of the unique selling proposition of an activity or place. What makes this particular one different from others, and what are some things that a traveler can experience? Well, maybe not only there, but very prominently here. Include actual stories, where it makes sense, local anecdotes, myths about the origin of a place's name, or the memorable story of a particular ascent, all enriching the description of a route or place. Use adjectives to paint a picture of places and routes. A narrow path through the enchanted forest by the picturesque village sounds a lot more interesting than a mere path through the forest by the village. Add personal recommendations to help the traveler make the most of their experience. This will create a bond between you and the reader and will make it feel to them like it is a friend offering valuable advice rather than just a dry piece of information. If you keep these tips in mind, it will be almost impossible to create a boring text. Of course, you must still find a good balance between inspirational storytelling and informative facts. Make sure that the details and information a traveler needs are in there. But your priority should always be inspiration first, information second. And that is where storytelling can really help. As mentioned before, it helps if you think of yourself as the traveler's friend rather than an information source. You are telling them the stories of how you explore, discover, and enjoy the destination. You are sharing your love for your destination with them. You are the friendly park ranger who wants to make sure everyone has a grand old time, by giving the travelers the information they need to stay safe, but most importantly, by awakening their enthusiasm for experiences that await them there in the destination.
So that was our first module for today, and I really like that last part. I think it's really important when we do marketing or promotion for tourism destinations, for offers, for things that people can experience at a certain place. We often think of ourselves kind of like a tourism info point or like a Wikipedia page that needs to give information, but in online content-based marketing, what's way more important than giving these informations, and they are important too because they allow the traveler to plan for the trip, it is also super, super important to inspire them, to motivate them, to grab their attention. And for this, it's actually perfect if everything is a little more personal. And all of you have the big privilege that you are already ambassadors for your destinations, that you are ambassadors for your region. Nobody knows it as well as you do. And you obviously have a love for your region. You want to share this with the world. You want to invite people to come visit your destination, visit your business, visit your services. And therefore, it really helps to think of yourself as someone who just imagine you meet the traveler in a cafe or in a bar, and you tell them about your destination, about why they should come visit you. This is the kind of messages that you want to bring out in online content. This is the kind of content that works well. Okay, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or you can raise your hand. And we already have the first question here from Fiona. I'm just going to read it out. How can a writer notify the adventurous visitors about some of the dangerous, not pleasant encounters like shepherd dogs without the shepherd, tough to pass ridges, and some cases of, sorry, having a bit of a network issue here. So basically, in summary, how can the author make sure that the user, that the traveler knows about the risks that they have to expect? First of all, while yes, you should keep the reader motivated and inspire them and keep your content inspirational, this is exactly the kind of information that absolutely has to be in the content. It's very, very important. I wouldn't start with it. I would never start the trail description with something like, you're probably going to die on this trail, but it's really nice to do. I mean, you can do that if it's a really, really extreme hike and you want to point that out. But usually I would start with, why it's worth doing this, but then also mention these dangers. Just be very, very honest about them, but don't scare people unnecessarily. So it always helps to basically mention these dangers and then make sure that the reader understands that it is their responsibility to estimate whether they are able to take up with them or not. So don't play them down. Don't say something like, yeah, this ridge is very difficult. It's a real climb, but honestly, if you might have to take your hands out of your pockets once or twice. It's really easy. That is not a good way of describing this. Describe the level of difficulty. Is it something that requires scrambling? Does it even require climbing? Is it exposed? Is there a possibility of falling? Mention these things, but then also trust that the user knows whether they are capable of doing that themselves or not. The same is true for animals, for example. Something that I often write in route descriptions, for example, when I create routes in the Western Balkans, is that I mention that these shepherd dogs exist and that they are actually usually more dangerous than, for example, wolves or bears, because they're very, very common and they can get really, really aggressive. So this is why I always recommend that hikers take poles with them, hiking poles, or that they pick up a rock or two that they can throw after these animals, or even pack pepper spray to defend themselves. So it is possible to mention the danger without making it sound like it's too dangerous to do it, and by giving the reader sort of a solution to the problem already, to offering them some advice on how they can navigate these dangers successfully without increasing the risk too much. But of course, you should always mention dangers. They are very, very important. I hope that answers your question. If not, just give a shout out. And Dritan, you also wrote that, oh no, this is another question or a comment more from Dritan Shala. Says that they appreciate the overall training and quality visuals and examples. Thank you so much for the funding. The challenge is to not make too short and not too long the content, and that is really, really the difficulty. It can happen very often that we want to describe something and then it becomes this really, really long text because it is very, very difficult to get something on point. One thing I can recommend you is that you read your text again and then just think about, what sentences can I just kick out, which ones are not important, or what can I move around? So in the Outdoor Active platform example, you have the title, you have the summary, and you have the description, something that we looked at the previous session, but we'll look at it again now in the second part of the course of today's session. And sometimes it can help to think about, okay, do I want to put this in the summary, or do I want to put this in the description, or do I want to even put it in the turn-by-turn directions, where I basically can write technically even a really long novel? Because some information is important so that somebody who wants to do the trail knows about it, but it might not be important for the person who first encounters this kind of content. Maybe information, for example, like whether there are water sources on the way, whether there's a way to fill up your bottle. This is an information that can be very, very important for a hiker, especially on longer routes. But it's not necessarily the first thing they need to know. So you can put this in the turn-by-turn direction. So somebody who wants to do the activity will read that later when they really focus on, when they really inform themselves what's important there, or you put it in the tips and hints section or in the safety information. But it's about balancing sort of inspiration and information. And second tip I can give you, a second recommendation, is that there are online tools that help you with that. And we're going to look at one of them in the second half of this course, AI language models such as ChatGPT. Something that you can do today is basically you take a long text that you wrote and that you don't know how to make it shorter, but you want to make it shorter. So you copy that into ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT, make it shorter. And then ChatGPT will do that for you. It will basically rewrite the same text, but make it shorter and more dense. You still have to check whether it's a good result, of course, but it can help you and really make the work a lot faster. Okay, next question comes from Michael. Michael is asking, what if I find information mistakes in the map where I want to draw a trail? Is it based on the OpenStreetMap? Can I correct it somehow? Can you resend the code for access in the Pro version? Okay, so those are basically three questions. Number one is what if the map is wrong that you find out? What if there's a track in there that is obviously not correct, that doesn't exist, or something is missing? You are right. Everything is based on the OpenStreetMap. We will talk about this shortly in the next session, but we're not going to give you a full introduction to the OpenStreetMap. The OpenStreetMap, just real quick on this point, is an open map database that works a little bit like Wikipedia. So everybody can contribute to it, but there's also a very strong community that makes sure that people do not contribute wrong information. Still, mistakes can happen, and there are many, many gaps in the OpenStreetMap. A lot of trails just are not on the OpenStreetMap, and then they will also not appear on the map on Outdooractive. So there are two things you can do. Either when you're planning your route, you can select at the bottom of the planning module whether you want to keep on the trails while routing, or whether you want to just draw the line yourself in the landscape. So for example, if you use the satellite image, you can just draw along the trail if you see it without you having to basically see the trail on the map already. The other option is that you can actually contribute it to the OpenStreetMap yourself. I can include a link to this in the follow-up information for this course, for this session today. You can create an account, and then you can start mapping things on the OpenStreetMap yourself. I can also copy a link to a tutorial on YouTube that explains you how to do this. One thing that's important to know, though, is that it's not getting synchronized in real time between Outdooractive and the OpenStreetMap. So if you make changes on the OpenStreetMap, it can take up to 3 or 4 months until it appears on the Outdooractive platform, because basically what Outdooractive does, it downloads the entire map and then re-uploads it into their app once every while, so a couple of times a year. So that means you can actually improve the OpenStreetMap, and that is a great advanced way of making your destination appear more correctly online, but it is a bit of work, of course. So yeah, I will include some information on that in the follow-up email so that you have some additional resources. And regarding the code for the Pro version, I would kindly ask you to send me an individual email so that I can follow up on this and check whether the code did not go through and whether it works or not, so that I can fix this issue. Okay. And then we have a question from Eden. Eden is writing, Simon, while writing a supposed captivating text, it's difficult to maintain a balance between objective information and subjective points about the given place. Is it better to be lenient on the subject side of the information and use more captivating storytelling, or try to maintain a balance between information and captivating words? Yeah, thank you for this question. I think it's a great question. And again, my answer would be, of course, it is about balancing it, and then also considering which part of the route description you are in. When it comes to the title and especially the summary, so the short text in the beginning, I'd say leaning towards the personal subjective impression of the trail is even better, because that's where the recommendation, the inspiration happens. And again, imagine yourself sitting in a bar and you meet a stranger and they ask you where you're from and you tell them, your destination. They're like, oh my God, I've always traveled there. Is it any good? And then you start telling them about it. You're not going to start with the information. You're not going to start with where you have to turn left or whether there are trash cans along the trail. You're going to start describing why it is beautiful and what you love and what your experience was. But then, of course, as you keep talking and inviting them to your destination, describing to them what they can do there, this is where you're going to get the information in, the objective, factual information that they need to know. So I would always start with the inspiration and then continue with the information. I think that's a great way of balancing it. Of course, it is difficult to know which information is objectively necessary. And just to give it away already, there is no perfect route description. It will always be subjective. It will always be your individual perspective of it. But I think it helps of thinking of yourself first, convincing them that it is a great activity they can do, and then telling them what they need to know in order to do it. So start with inspiration first, and continue with information second. Okay, I was able to answer your questions for now. My suggestion is that we move on with the second module of today's session now, which will maybe also clarify a few of the things that I already discussed. And then afterwards, we're going to have time for another Q&A session. And if you have any questions already, you can put them in the chat and we will answer them later, or we'll have a chance to talk about them after the second module.
Not everyone is a natural-born writer, and finding the right words to inspire a traveler to visit your destination might not come that easy to you. Sure, but writing, like any other craft, is a skill that can be learned. And as you will notice in this chapter, there is no need for perfection or talent when it comes to creating text-based outdoor tourism content for an online platform. With a few simple rules in mind, and the help of some free online tools, you can become a skilled outdoor tourism content creator too. So, over the course of this chapter, we will look at how to write targeted texts and descriptions, what online tools make the job of content creation a lot easier, and how to write route descriptions in practice. Ready? Let's go. You have now heard the term targeted texts a few times. What is this all about? In the world of outdoor tourism content creation, targeted texts simply mean crafting texts that speak directly to a specific group of people, your target group. It's like tailoring your words to match what they love and care about. These texts are important because they help creators connect better with their audience. When content reflects what a particular group of outdoor enthusiasts enjoy, it creates a stronger bond. This bond is key because it piques people's interests, builds trust, and makes them want to keep coming back. In outdoor tourism, targeted texts are all about sharing stories and information that spark excitement and inspiration among different types of nature and adventure enthusiasts, or, in other words, your future guests. Previously, we already looked into the importance of storytelling and why it is so crucial to take the perspective of the user. And this remains our most important rule. If you want to catch a traveler's attention, if you want to inspire them to visit your destination and book your services, you have to create content with that specific target group in mind. Let's say our friend Ari wants to publish a hiking route in her destination with the name of inspiring someone like Alex to visit her destination, getting him to stay at her guest house, and making sure he has all the information he needs for his adventure. Then, Ari will have to answer in her route description the following questions. How does this activity match Alex's interests? Because only then it will inspire him to travel to this very place. How can I spark his enthusiasm about wanting to do this particular activity or a route? And what facts and information will he need so he can trust the content and stay safe on the trail? As you can see here, Ari is again faced with the challenge of balancing inspiration and information. Inspiration is key to grab Alex's attention and to make him enthusiastic about visiting this place. and to motivate him to actually travel to Ari's destination. However, Alex has a bit of experience in the outdoors, so he knows that he will need certain information to know whether this route is actually right for him and that he can stay safe while doing the activity. Only then will he trust the content. In summary, inspiration equals enthusiasm. Information equals trust and safety. This is why it is also so crucial to record the necessary information in the field and to do your research beforehand, as was discussed in some of the previous chapters. As the content creator, you are responsible for making sure that a traveler can trust the information you have given. This can be an issue of life and death, especially in the mountains. This is why it is also very important that you always fact check and proofread everything you have written. Don't just hit the publish button as soon as you have entered the last words. Read your text again. Do away with typos and other errors, and make sure that all the facts and details you provide are actually accurate. These are the basics of writing targeted texts. To take the perspective of the reader and make sure you can create your text specifically for them, making it about their interests and making sure they get the information they need. To keep a good balance between inspiration and information, as the inspiring parts will grab the traveler's attention and motivate them to visit your destination, while the information part builds trust and keep the traveler safe on the trail. And finally, to fact check and proofread everything before you publish it. Now it is time to write these actual texts, but not without a little help from some digital tools. There are two big factors that make a lot of people shy away from creating text-based content themselves. Language and language. Wait, what? Don't worry, you heard correctly. But language can have two meanings in this context. First, there is the issue of the actual language itself. The world's lingua franca is English. And if you want to reach an international target group, you'll have to create content in English. Of course, translations into other languages can be helpful too. If they are languages of your main target groups, maybe French, Spanish, Italian, German, or Russian, and if you really only want to reach these target groups, you might not even need English. But then again, there is a good chance that your mother tongue, your first language, is one that is not spoken by your target group, and thus you will have to create content in a language that is not your first language and that you might not feel so comfortable in, like English. So, language, in this case, is an issue of translation. The other issue with language is that just because you know the words does not mean that you can automatically put together sentences or even a whole text that is pleasant to read, well composed, and beautifully written. So language, in this case, is an issue of style. Luckily, we live in exciting times, and new innovations have brought solutions for both of these challenges, translations and style, that are readily available to you. So in this part, we are going to look at how to use online translation tools and artificial intelligence to easily create great text-based content. A very simple and helpful translation tool that you probably have already heard of is Google Translate. Google has been offering this digital language tool for several years, and the quality of translations has become increasingly better. Currently, the service supports 133 languages, so there's a good chance yours is among them. In practice, this means that if you want to create content in English, there is no need for you to actually write the content in English. If Ari's first language was, let's say, Esperanto, which is not really anybody's first language, of course, but we will use it for this example. She can easily write any text she wants in her own language, then copy-paste it into Google Translate on the browser or in the app, and Google Translate will spit out a usually quite readable English version of the text. Currently, Google Translate supports texts up to 5,000 characters, which should be more than enough for any text fields in outdoor tourism content creation. You can find Google Translate under www.translate.google.com or in the Android Play Store and iOS App Store. There are other digital translation tools too, such as DeepL, that you can also use. However, most of these services support way fewer languages, so make sure yours is among them. Generally, it is advisable to always proofread the translated text before copy-pasting it, because Google or any other tool might get things wrong and struggle with translations. This happens particularly often with names and local terms, which you probably want to keep in its original language anyways, even in the translated version. So even if your English is not perfect, read through each translated text again and see if their original names are still there and whether the whole thing seems to make sense. Otherwise, simply make the necessary adjustments. But what if writing beautifully crafted text is not really your thing? Not even in your own language? This is where recent innovations in the field of AI can be a big help. So-called large language models are able to put together meaningful texts based on simple prompts. The most famous one currently is ChatGPT, but there are other AI models like Google Bard. While these powerful tools can be used for a lot of different purposes, their ability to turn even the smallest amount of information into a good readable text is stunning. In this course, we are going to use OpenAI's ChatGPT as an example. But of course, you are welcome to use any other large language model AI that you like. There are some big and very important limitations that we will talk about in a minute. But first, let's try it out. ChatGPT is free, but to use it, you have to create an account first. You can use your existing Google, Microsoft, or Apple account, or create a new one using your email address. Once you are logged in, you are presented with a chat window. Your conversation partner is not a human though, but the artificial intelligence, and it will respond to whatever you type in. Now you basically have to treat ChatGPT like an assistant. You tell the chatbot what you want to do, and the chatbot does it for you. But you have to make sure that your instructions are precise. The result will only be as good as the prompt. Let's say we want to create content for the hike up to the Maya Choros on the Albanian Riviera. We will tell ChatGPT what we want to write. A summary of the trail starting from Logara Pass. The chatbot immediately creates a text based on our prompt and on tons of information gathered from other websites. We might find this a bit too long though, so we tell ChatGPT to make it shorter. And directly we end up with a short, concise, and somewhat poetic trail description. The hike from Logara Pass to Maya Choros is a thrilling adventure through diverse landscapes. Starting at Logara Pass, the trail ascends through forests and alpine meadows, offering panoramic views of the Albanian Riviera. The challenging ascent leads to the summit, where hikers are rewarded with breathtaking vistas of the coastline and surrounding mountains. It's a must-do for nature enthusiasts seeking a memorable trek in the Albanian mountains. Now remember, we also need a catchy title. Here it is always recommended to ask ChatGPT for a choice of options. For example, a list of 5 to choose from. I personally like the last one best. Coastal Majesty, hiking high from Logara to Maya Choros. If you don't like the options given, you can always ask for more, of course. Now in some cases, you might have taken some notes on the trail and know it by heart. So you can also feed ChatGPT that information and it will craft a well-written text out of it. We start by giving ChatGPT a list of things to remember from the route. Where it starts, where you have to look out for so you don't get lost, what landmarks there are, and how you will get back down. ChatGPT will use this information and put into a good format. But wait, we did not want a list, did we? So we just tell the chatbot to make it a text instead. Of course, if you feel like something is missing or wrong, you can always ask the chatbox to fix it, like this. As you can see, it is a powerful tool that allows you to turn notes, a handful of facts, or even a simple prompt into a nice readable text. ChatGPT currently speaks over 80 languages, so you most likely can use it in your local language. You can even communicate with it in your language and then ask it to give you the results in English. It works even without having to copy-paste it to Google Translate. There are a few limitations, however. Please, always read through everything ChatGPT created. There are often mistakes that must be fixed, and sometimes the results are absolute garbage. You are still responsible for the content, even if ChatGPT wrote the text. So make sure there is only correct information in there. If you keep using ChatGPT, the language can become a little bit repetitive. If you notice the same sentence structures over and over again, you can always ask ChatGPT to write this again, but in different words. Don't ever share sensitive information or private details with ChatGPT in your prompts. The program uses a self-learning algorithm, and everything you put in your prompt is saved on their servers. Have fun playing around with it. ChatGPT never gets tired, and you can ask it to do the same task over and over again until you like the result. In summary, tools like Google Translate and ChatGPT cannot replace you as the owner of local knowledge regarding trails, places, and outdoor activities in your region, but they are very helpful tools that make the creation of outdoor tourism content a lot faster and easier. And if you feel like writing text is not really your thing, or if you struggle with English or other languages that you might want to publish in, a little bit, these tools can make your life a million times easier. So, to recap, we heard of the importance of storytelling and why we should always take the perspective of the user when creating digital content. We are familiar with the basics now, and we now know how to use online tools like ChatGPT and Google Translate to make our job easier. It is time we put all of this to use and start creating text-based content. And for this, we are going to return to our friend Ari. In one of the previous chapters, we already saw how Ari creates a GPX track on a map online and how she filled in the different fields in the route description. Let's look at how she came up with those texts. Let's start with the title. In this fictional scenario, Ari's guest house is in the Baba Mountains of North Macedonia, in a village called Lavci. For the title of the shown route, Ari wants to combine two aspects: inspiration and information. The information part is the name of the peak, Neolitsa, as well as the name of the mountain range, Baba. To make it a bit more rewarding, however, Ari is adding Peak Pursuit to the title. Why? Because it has an adventurous ring to it. Makes it sound like a challenge, which this hike certainly is, within limits, and indicates that a rewarding summit will be pursued. For the route summary, which serves as a kind of teaser to the route itself, she follows a similar approach, but this time she elaborates a little more. She puts some necessary information in there. It's a strenuous hike, over 1,100 meters of altitude, and it takes place in the Pelister National Park. But then the main focus here is actually, as we discussed before, on the experience that awaits the hiker. It's a rewarding hike, and it lets hikers experience unique views. Again, inspiration and information combined, with a special focus on the hiker's experience. The route description offers the opportunity to talk more about the local context, the character of the route, and special features that make this route unique and worth visiting. Ari starts with describing the local landscape and the destination of this hike. At first glance, the heavily forested mountain range near Bitola, known either as Baba or, after its highest peak, Pelister, looks more like a landscape of rolling hills. Nevertheless, this mountain range is the third highest in the country, and the peaks above the tree line offer incomparable views of the surrounding area and as far as Greece. At 1,865 meters, Neolitsa is one of its lower peaks, but its proximity to Bitola and the beautiful ascent from the village of Lapci make it the perfect introduction to this wild landscape. She then carries on to describe the character of the activity. The described route follows a mostly marked trail through the forest and alpine meadows and forms a varied circuit in the upper part. This helps users determine whether this hike is the right kind of activity for them and understand what to expect. Finally, she takes on the target group's perspective and sells them the unique selling propositions of this activity. She knows her target group are travelers who enjoy exploring nature and unspoiled landscapes. So as this is a national park, she simply highlights the natural wonders visitors can experience here. Here in Pelister National Park, hikers have the opportunity to experience pristine mountain forests, as well as a variety of plants, insects, and birds. Even brown bears, wolves, and lynxes live here, but generally leave two-legged visitors in peace, so no worries. These are just some examples of how to craft short texts, both grabbing the reader's attention while at the same time conveying crucial information, using the recommendations and techniques described in the previous sections of this course. Whether Ari wrote this text herself or used ChatGPT to come up with the individual passages, or whether she used her local language and then ran the text through Google Translate, doesn't matter. In the end, she has produced a convincing piece of content that will inspire travelers to pay her destination a visit. We will continue refining this route as a piece of promotional content in the following parts of the course. Stay tuned.
So that was module number 2 for tonight's session, and we looked really deeply into new technologies such as Google Translate and ChatGPT. And we already have the first question on the chat. So this is also an invitation to everyone else. Put your questions in the chat or raise your hand if you want to ask your question through the microphone and camera. And we're going to start with the first question by Dritan Shala. I use Google Translate for time saving, however, still assist using ChatGPT. This session makes me think over, especially for summarizing and other help. But yes, person is responsible and author of text. Are there issues with plagiarism faced yet using ChatGPT? So 2 questions here. Well, 1 comment more and then 1 question. And I think that first comment is really important. It was also highlighted in the module, but I really, really want you to keep that in mind. Even if you use a tool like ChatGPT or Google Gemini or other AIs, you are responsible for the content if you publish it. So make sure that the information there is correct. And the example that we saw in the module here with Maya Joris and the Albanian Riviera is worked quite well because it is a peak that is visited by quite a few people, and there are some route descriptions on the internet already, or some reviews on Google and stuff like that. Now, if you want to describe a route to a mountain that is hardly climbed or that nobody really knows or doesn't see many visitors, the result that ChatGPT can give you might be complete garbage. So you have to check it and you have to make sure that the information is correct. What does work quite well is feeding ChatGPT with information yourself, as you could see in the example for the route for the turn-by-turn directions. So if you have some notes, but you struggle to make it into a nice text or to find the right words for it, you can just give it the information, tell it, this is the name of the peak, the hike is moderately difficult, this is the length of the hike, these are some things that you can see on the way. At the top, you get a nice view of the surrounding mountains, and there are usually, I don't know, some flowers on the alpine meadows, at least in spring and summer. If you give information like that into ChatGPT, it can help you put that into a nice text, and then you can still tell it, make it shorter, make it longer, more details, less details, and so on. So this is really something you can try out. You can try feeding it with information and see what kind of results it gives you and whether they are useful for your descriptions. Now, your second question, Dritan, was regarding plagiarism issues. So far, ChatGPT and other AI models, at least those that are famous on the market, like ChatGPT or Google Gemini. By the way, in the module, it was still called Google Bard because they changed the name 2 weeks ago. So it used to be Google Bard. Now it's called Google Gemini. Sorry, I have some connectivity issues here. They allow you to use these texts for whatever you like, and it's quite unlikely this will change because the idea here is that these are tools that help you writing, but they are not the content creators themselves. Especially if you do check everything afterwards, maybe even make a few changes to it, it is basically no different from using a translation service because there also a text is created based on a prompt. And in one case, the prompt is the text, for example, in Albanian, translated by Google then into English, but then still Google technically wrote that text, right? And the same as with ChatGPT, you put some information in there and then ChatGPT makes it into a text. So it's a tool that helps you. So currently there are no plagiarism issues. What will most likely come, at least in the European Union, is that it will be necessary to mark automatically created texts if they have not been fact-checked by a human as AI generated. But again, if you use ChatGPT to create a text, but then you read through it, make the changes that are needed, fact-check everything, then it is not technically a purely AI generated text anymore, but you, a human author, use that tool to create a text and it is your content. So no, currently there are no plagiarism issues. However, of course, it is a big philosophical question too that we could discuss for hours, whether in itself ChatGPT is plagiarizing content from other people. And technically, it would be possible that ChatGPT is basically just quoting a text that someone else uploaded without letting you know it. These cases are very, very rare, and usually ChatGPT and other AI models have some built inside instruments to avoid that, to make sure that they always use new words and they don't just copy content from other sources. So usually you can be sure that there are no problems with plagiarism regarding ChatGPT, but please, please make sure to fact check everything that comes out of these AI models. I hope that answers the question. Looks like it. Thanks for the feedback, Dritan. Are there any other questions? There are 2 more questions. Brilliant. So Fiona is asking, 2 questions. How should the writer integrate short information about details in the sense that they may be periodical, like a kind of blooming flower, or in case of birds nesting in a specific period, etc.? And the other question is instructing them to not fly drones nearby flocks of birds. Okay, so we have 2 questions that are probably most relevant in protected areas, but generally in nature. Thank you very much for these questions, Fiona, because I think they address some very, very important issues, namely the issue of the kind of footprint that we leave in nature while we are there. So the first question is, how do you integrate this kind of information? Technically, this is up to you. So you can decide where you put this. You saw a few examples in today's session and in the session last week, where basically, if you feel like this is something that really makes the trail special and you want to point out that this is one of the main reasons why people want to go there, for example, if there is a certain flower that blooms at a certain time of year and that really makes the hike unforgettable, I would already put that in the summary or in the route description so that it becomes very, very prominent. If it is something that you just want to mention sort of for those who really want to take a deep dive into the route, you can always put it either in the turn-by-turn directions or in the author's recommendations or in the tips and hints sections. Because basically, so there's author's advice, there's tips and recommendations, so there are all these different fields, and you can decide where you think that fits most. Author's advice is usually limited to 180 characters, so this should be something really short. If it's if you want to give a longer, lengthy I would say if this is something that keeps happening at a certain spot, it might even be worth it putting it in the trail description, in the route description itself, because it is a very, very important issue, and you want to keep people from doing that. So you can put it at basically at the end of the route description, say something like, please adhere to the rules of the protected areas and don't fly drones here because it will disturb the birds, or something like that. Usually I would put this either in the safety information, if it is safety relevant, or I would put it in the tips and recommendations section or in the turn-by-turn directions, so you really point this out. In some cases, protected areas have digitized the rules themselves through a platform called Digitize the Planet that collects all of these rules, if it is, for example, a rule in an entire protected area. And if they have done that, then these rules would automatically appear with the route on our directive. There will be a little logo with a drone striking through that says drone flying not allowed here. And it gives information about the protected area. So far in the Western Balkans, none of the protected areas have done that. And the problem is that a platform like our directive cannot digitize these rules themselves, because worldwide there are over 300,000 protected areas, and it would be absolutely impossible for a single company to do that. If you are in touch with the protected areas in the region, you can, if you want, reach out to them and suggest to them that they get in touch with us, and we can help them digitize their rules so they will automatically be displayed with each route that goes through them. This is only for protected areas, however, and maybe, conserving nature and making sure animals are not disturbed is important everywhere in nature, not only in a national park or nature park. So very, very valid question, and thank you for pointing that out. I think it is very important to keep that in mind, and we should always motivate the travelers that we want to reach with our content to behave responsibly and sustainably while they are on the trail, while they are in nature, because we only have one planet and we shouldn't destroy it. And then we have a comment from a user without a name who says, I'm a bit reluctant to use ChatGPT as I always recognize someone's AI text. I agree. Sometimes it is quite easy to spot these AI texts, although the technology does keep getting better and better. And I'm sometimes really, really surprised at the results now, where I read it and I'm like, I would have never guessed an AI had written this. Actually, sometimes, I studied English as a language, and I studied writing and in literature, and sometimes I write a text and then I think, okay, I'm just gonna ask ChatGPT to rewrite the same thing, and I put the text in there, and then ChatGPT writes, and I'm like, this is better than what I wrote. Why? How is this possible? Why is the computer smarter than I am? But yeah, it is. No, but you're absolutely right, and especially the fewer information is available, the more repetitive these texts become, because basically ChatGPT just needs to make do with what it has. And in these cases, it can help to, first of all, ask ChatGPT to rewrite it again in new words, or to basically just use some of these sentences or use the text as a basic structure, but then make some changes yourself to personalize it and make it sound a little less like an AI text. In the end, these are tools that are there to help you, and you can use them to whatever extent you like. You can basically ask ChatGPT to write the entire text for you, check it and say, okay, this is good, I can use it the way it is. Or you can basically just use it as inspiration, use some parts of it, recombine them, and so on. It's completely up to you. It's a tool, and you can use it, but you don't have to. It's literally just to make your life a little bit easier. And in some cases, it might not work at all. Okay, do we have any other questions? Anything that might have come up during the last minutes of me talking away about AI and translation tools? Okay, thank you. Positive feedback here. All right, should we look at the homework then and at next week's session so we get a bit of an outlook? For this week, we recommend that if you haven't registered yourself and your organization or business on Outeractive My Business yet, that you do so. I assume that most of you already have done that, which is great. And last week, I suggested that you record a trail or a route on the trail, or that you plan one on the Outeractive Route Planner. So this week, I suggested for this route, for one of the routes that you recorded on the trail or that you planned using the Outeractive Route Planner, come up with a catchy title, an inspiring summary, and a convincing description that contains inspiration and information for the trail. And I would recommend that you just try out a few of the things that I mentioned today. So if you want, you can use ChatGPT or Google Gemini. I'm going to include the links in the follow-up email that you're going to receive latest tomorrow afternoon. You can, of course, write in your own language and then ask Google Translate to translate it. Just try it out a little bit, or you just might want to do it all by yourself, which is great too. Try it out and try to come up with a really catchy title, a summary that inspires people to visit that place and to do that activity, and write a convincing route description. Of course, if you want, you can already start filling the other fields in the route descriptions or like in the route on Outeractive too. But this is sort of what we recommend for this week, so that you can really try out coming up with these inspiring texts that contain a bit of storytelling, that balance inspiration and information, and that are therefore appealing for users, for travelers who might want to learn more about your destination. If you want, you're always welcome to also send me your routes that you've written, and I'll look at them. So feel free to send me an email with a link to your route. Even if it's not published yet, you can send it to me. I can usually still access it because you sent it to me. So yeah, that's an offer that I can make. Next week, we're going to have our session again on Wednesday at 6:30 European time. And the topic next week is going to be high-ranking content. So content ranking. We're going to look at the Outeractive platform again, and we're going to look at how it is decided what content is shown to users first and what is showing at the end of the list. We're going to look at the virtual travel guide and how they work and how they can increase the reach of your content, make sure that more users, more travelers see the information and the content that you put online. We're going to look at how content ranking works and how you can make sure that your content is at the top of the list whenever people try to find information about a certain place. And we're going to talk a little bit about open data and the opportunities of it, what different open data licensing models exist and why they can be useful for you to make sure that your content gets spread wider, but also how you can use openly available data, media, content to enrich your content and make it better. There we go. So that's what's waiting us next week. If you have any questions until then that are very, very urgent, feel free to send me an email, and I will read it and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. Otherwise, you can always remember your question and take it with you until next week's session, and then ask it either at the beginning or during the session next week, and we can discuss it together. Thank you very much for joining today's session. We're actually 5 minutes early, which is great. So you have a little more time for dinner. And also information next week, we're going to probably have a slightly shorter session. It might only be a little over an hour. But the weeks after that, we're going to return to the normal schedule. But yeah, for now, have a very nice evening. Thank you for joining, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.